it's Lisa Moeller, owner of MedMark Media, and welcome to another edition of Doc Talk Dental. Our guest today is Adrian LaTrace, the CEO of Boyd Industries. Adrian has been with Boyd for 12 plus years and has strengthened the company's position as a dental equipment market leader. Under his leadership, Boyd has expanded its product lines, dental specialty markets, and global reach. He is a frequent contributor on topics related to innovations in dental office design, equipment, and infection control. Earlier in his career, Adrian held senior operations positions with Acciona, Windpower, North America, Knowles Electronics, Gulfstream Aerospace and USRobotics. Adrian and Boyd have provided countless information and articles to our specialty journals, Implant Practice US, Orthodontic Practice US, and Endo Practice US. And we value you as a customer. We know that you all value your customers as well. And we like to think you provide value to you as you provide value to all of your customers. Thanks so much for joining us today, Adrian. Welcome to Doc Talk Dental.
Thank you, Lisa. Really enjoyed it, and thanks for the nice intro. Looking forward to this.
We're both remote in our homes, in our offices, right? This is what we hope will be a post-COVID interview as we get past this COVID situation, right?
Absolutely. Today I happen to be joining you from my home office. Boyd being designated as an essential business when the shelter-in-place orders were being issued around the country. We've been open, and so typically I'd be joining you from my office, but I thought today I'd come home and be able to address this podcast today with you.
Well, you can see that I'm actually in my home as well. And I don't know what we would do without Zoom in this day and age with what transpired here and how we've been able to handle business with our electronic friends.
Well, I think we need to get used to it. We need to get used to it because this is certainly going to be the way to come for at least the foreseeable future. But you know, I'm optimistic as we see more and more of the states start beginning to reopen, dental offices across the country beginning to reestablish themselves. That hopefully we will return to presumably a new normal here over the coming months, and
yes.
We get back into our offices and enjoy the lives that we had before March.
Right. So tell us what Boyd Industries has been doing in the face of this pandemic, and how you're operating differently and dealing with your customers within dental.
Yeah, certainly. So let me, first of all, I appreciate the nice intro. Let me just give you a little bit more about my background.
Sure.
You know, I've been a lifelong student of the life sciences. I got my undergraduate degree in chemistry, which was at my alma mater, as close as pre-med as we could get. And my electives were all in classes that typically ended in ology of some sort. So the life sciences have always been my interest. After a short stint in the Air Force, I ended up in manufacturing. And my interest in infection control and pathogens was peaked back in the mid-90s. It really started after reading a book called The Hot Zone by Richard Preston that was released in 1994. If you had the chance to read that, you know, a discussion about the Ebola virus and how pathogens, especially those that have a long gestation period, can lead to some serious deaths and changes in society.
Right.
Later, with Guns, Germs, and Steel, that I read by, look at my notes, Jared Diamond in 1997. If you've had the chance
what was the name of that one again?
It's called Guns, Germs, and Steel.
Guns, Germs, and Steel. Okay.
Yeah, it was released in 1997, and both like the Hot Zone turned into a movie, which was a big flop, but the book itself is fact-based. And the same with Guns, Germs, and Steel. The author is, you know, a researcher, and has discussed and looked at the ways that, especially in the case of germs, have changed human evolution and changed societies over the years with different types of outbreaks. You know, for example, as the Europeans began to colonize around different parts of the world, they brought with them diseases that, in some cases, wiped out 95% of indigenous populations. So, an interesting read. It's been around for quite some time. And then I guess last in this is The Black Swan. And I know many people have read The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. That was written in 2007, which, as a business person, there's no predicting the unpredictable, but you can be prepared for unpredictable events. And I think, as a theme of the book, that was something that helped formalize the way that I have approached, things like the present crisis. You've asked about at Boyd. Again, we were designated an essential business when the shelter-in-place orders went into place, by the CDC and then later the federal government. We've been
so you've never shut down in any of this?
No, we did not. And it really started in February, as you know. Late February, we were getting word about China and supply chain. I was learning from others in the industry that were encountering disruption in their supply chains that were in Asia. You mentioned Knowles Electronics as one of the companies I would work with. We were in the hearing health industry, and at the time we produced about 86% of all the speakers and microphones that went in hearing aids around the world. So I learned a lot more about earwax than I'd ever want to learn. But it was a really interesting experience. I was the head of quality and regulatory and reliability engineering for that company, and spent quite a bit of time in China, where we had factories in Malaysia. I had a lab in Singapore, and got very familiar with doing business in Asia and understanding those supply chains. So when I started, when the word was getting out, there was a problem in China. I immediately began to assess our supply chain. Now, we're a U.S.-based company. We're located here in Clearwater, Florida. We've been in this part of Florida since our inception in 1957. I am the fourth, if you will, owner of the company in the history of the company. And I'm, proud to say that we have largely, I won't say absolutely, but largely, an absolute majority of our parts are domestically sourced. We're also what we're known as a vertically integrated company in manufacturing vernacular, meaning we produce a lot of our own components that go into the products that we produce. And so in late February, when I realized that China was having some problems and I was hearing rumors around the world, of course, I took a look at where we were at relative to our supply chain. Then later in the first part of March, we learned that the Osteo Integration Show was canceled in Seattle. And we were beginning to learn that perhaps some of that was making its way to the American shores, the COVID. This caused an alert within my company. Began to work with our team, look at at least the mitigation ideas that were being thrown around by the CDC and others at the time, and what could I do to work safeguard our workforce and continue our operations. Began sending out notices to customers in early March, letting them know that we're, again, an American-made manufacturing company with a supply chain that's well over 90% domestically sourced. And so that, our mitigation, our risk as it related to supply chain was very, very low, and we're able to continue operations. Of course, you have all the stakeholders. The banks want to know what's going on. The customers want to know what's going on, and so continue to communicate with them up until the endo show.
I think that's been the most important thing in this whole situation is staying in communication with our customers and the people we do business with. And just being honest, like, this is where we're at right now. This is where we intend to go. And again, like I said earlier, to just solving problems for our clients. It may not look the same old way that we used to do business. So we're reinventing ourselves in a way, right? That we're, I think that's the best policy, is just getting out there and just staying in front of them and letting them know you're here. You guys have such an advantage too, being a U.S. manufacturer. That's amazing. It's great.
Well, as a business owner yourself, you understand about leadership, and one of the key principles in leadership I've learned over my life is communicate. Whether it's externally or internally, the higher you are in an organization, it may seem like, geez, LaTrace is always saying the same thing over and over again, but you do that to make sure it propagates down throughout the organization or out into the field where you want it to be. And so,
Right.
as a takeaway, or as I looked at the scenario and how we have navigated through this situation, whether it's me or my leadership team, this is one of the key principles we've held, is that we probably have over communicated, making sure and assuring our workforce that we've put the mitigation actions into place that they can feel safe when they come to work, and in communicating with our customer base and assuring them that not only are we here now to continue to supply them, but we have managed through this. Been through a few of these in my career. I'm highly confident that not only Boyd but our country will come out of this in good order. And I want the customers to know that Boyd's going to be around. I've been around for over 60 years. I'd like to think it's going to be around for another 60 years, and so
Absolutely.
that they can have confidence when they purchase our products. We're going to be there to back them up.
Absolutely. I saw a memo that you put out. I think it was to your team, or I think you shared it with one of my team members. And I have to say that was one of the best worded emails I've ever read. It was very inspirational and very it was just uplifting and positive. I think you put it out pretty early on. But I did not as well, but I did the same for, not as well as you did for my team. But just letting them know, hey, we're going to get through this together. We're here. I've been in business 15 years. You've been a little bit longer than I have. But it's the same mantra, right? We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. Things may change. Things may look a little bit different, maybe in the way we do business, but it's not, we're definitely here to stay. So yeah. How do you foresee, so for your market specifically, how do you foresee things changing, post-COVID, after we get through all of this with the economy and everything that's come with it?
Yeah, good question. I think there's going to, the change is inevitable. How do you prepare for these crises? Well, I'll take a step back. In January, I held a national sales meeting down here, had all my sales team around the country in. And one of the things we did a SWOT analysis. And you may do this in your own business. SWOT analysis aren't novel. They've been around, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Mm-hmm. And out of the hundreds of inputs that we had, among zombie apocalypse and such, nobody put in there a global pandemic as a threat to our company. And so, I tell my team, we need to prepare for change. Again, we can't predict the unpredictable, but you need to be able to adapt to that. Relative to the industry, I don't see this to be truly a black swan event. 9/11 was a black swan event. I happened to be in China at the time when that occurred. Our life changed significantly as a country. It was unpredictable. Yes. Nobody saw it coming. You had 2,977 victims there. And it really changed our country and the world, for that matter. Yeah, definitely. In this particular case, we've had other outbreaks. I mean, we've seen it now. We can argue as to the severity and why we reacted so strongly to this one. I mean, was it something that our government happened to know that, this did emerge from some biomedical facility in China? And thus the strong reaction that we had as a country to start, shutting things down. I recall when I first, my customer service team came up to see me. I think it was like November 15th or 16th, or excuse me, not November, March 15th or 16th, and said, "Hey, we just got word that offices in California are shutting down." 2 hours later, he was back in my office again saying, "Hey, I just learned that Oregon is shutting down." 2 days later, we had offices across 36 states shut down. And so, regardless of how we got into this and the reasons for how we got into this, I think when we come out of this, there will be some changes. Right now, it's looking that, CDC, AAO, Amos, OSHA, everybody's getting involved a little bit in trying to mandate and regulate changes within the dental office. Let's be honest, the dental office has been a safe environment, and from an infection control.
I mean, yeah, very sterile, always very sterile environment. Yes.
Yeah, the doctors we work with have good protocols. They take care of their offices and their patients and their staffs. So there will be the change, though. Some of this is going to be downward driven by the regulatory. Now, I will also point out that a lot of the changes that are being, I'll say, requested, because nothing has been said that you have to absolutely do it. But if the operative word in this is interim, it's all interim guidance. CDC or ADA or nobody's put out anything that says this is absolutely the world that you're going to be in from here on out. I've seen extremes where we have doctors and look like hazmat suits working on patients. That's. And again,
I've seen that.
I worked in clean rooms. I've been around a lot of stuff. I mean, I've worn suits like that, but I don't know if that's necessarily all that necessary. As long as you're doing good protocols to mitigate any infection control.
Right.
But what I'm really concerned about, Lisa, is not necessarily what's mandated by the regulatory agencies. It's going to be consumer perception. Oftentimes changes occur because of the consumer. And I know just on our Facebook page, we've seen some input on some of our office design where, traditionally the orthodontic office is a big open bay, where comments had been made is, I'll never walk into an office that looks like that again. They don't believe that it's just the optics of it. Is that, I got another patient sitting, 6 feet away from me or 7 feet, whatever that distance requirement is. But nonetheless, it's just the optics of it. And so, there's a lot to be said about aerosols and management of aerosols. And we're looking at that. And we believe we have some help and some products that we're working on to try to help doctors deal with it. But, again, orthodontists don't produce a lot of aerosols for the most part in what they do. Certainly, oral surgery world, implant surgery. I mean, they're doing surgery for goodness sakes. I mean, they're in a very sterile environment to begin with.
Yes.
Endodontist, it'll probably need to take a look at it, but typically you're in a suite by yourself and not necessarily out in an open bay. So, I guess my long answer to your question is there's going to be some things that change. I believe there are some things that are more of a knee-jerk reaction right now because of the concerns in how contagious this particular virus is. But I think the long-term change is going to be driven by the consumer. I think the consumer is the one that's going to probably, the mom that's bringing their child into an orthodontic office that doesn't really feel comfortable with the way that it's set up, or another different type of dental setting. So.
I think you're right. I've heard so many different, I've done a lot of webinars and a lot of podcasts during this time. And a lot of the reactions, I think, have been the knee-jerk reactions to, we're testing everyone who comes through the door and everyone's going to get a temperature check and, and that, I mean, I've seen and heard it all, putting up barriers in their office. But you are right. It all comes down to what the patients are comfortable with and what they're going to dictate really how it flows and, how we recover from all this, I think. I mean, let's face it, people still need to go to the dentist. Thank God.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So we can't there's a lot of things we can do with telemedicine, but, dentistry is not one of them.
Yeah.
So we have to go in for our cleanings, and, that's why we touch on all the important specialties of the niche markets of dentistry with implant, ortho, endo, and dental sleep, because they're all very, very niche and kind of must-haves, specialties of dentistry. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm reliving my youth, having braces at this point in my life. I haven't seen my orthodontist.
Do you have braces?
Yes. I really needed to do it. Actually, it's interesting. My orthodontist is undoing what my orthodontist did when I was 11 years old. So,
Oh.
but you know, I haven't seen them since early March. And won't see them again till May. You know, what we're seeing right now is the backlog of patients. I mean, let's think about it. You know, you've had patients in queue with broken teeth, wires that need to be replaced, root canals that need to be performed.
Oh yeah, they're going to be busy.
Yeah, I just really feel for the doctors and their staffs right now as they turn this spigot back on. As I saw last count, I think it was 12 states that had allowed dental offices. That number may have increased by now, but we're seeing this occur across the country as they start turning back on. So we'll see how these doctors deal with this. I don't even say it's a good problem. I mean, it's going to be a real challenge for them for the next several weeks as they start ramping back up.
I think so. I, for one, can't wait for my dental cleaning visit because I'm way past due. And I mean, we just hope that people have kept their oral hygiene in check during this whole situation. A lot more brushing and flossing.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, from an equipment standpoint, personally, I was thinking, do you think that, like your chairs and your, the places where you're turning over the patients, will that look any different? I mean, like more protective, like material on them or anything regarding that? I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've written on infection control a little bit about what the equipment suppliers can do to help promote good practices. In our particular products, for example, our chairs, the upholstery material that we use in our chairs, the Boltaflex has a coating on it. It's called Prefix, which is an antimicrobial coating that helps prevent the buildup of any kind of pathogens on the surface. Likewise, we use Ultra Leather. Ultra Leather Pro has a coating on it as well. Within the plastics, we use a microban. It's formulated into the plastics, which is again an antimicrobial type of solution that goes into it. Solid surfaces. We produce a lot of products with Corian and Wilson Art solid surface, which is not porous and easy to clean and disinfect. So, from a Boyd point of view, I don't know if it's so much. We believe, we've been promoting, products that support good infection control protocols for years. We build sterilization centers to help doctors manage their sterilization processes with a better flow. I do believe, though, there's probably going to be some new products to come out to help address some of the, particularly the aerosols. I think this is of all the aspects of the contagion, if you will. The aerosol seem to be the thing that most healthcare professionals are concerned about. And, we believe that there are probably some products and things that we can do to help doctors to do that, to primarily to remove or reduce aerosols. I mean, I think the doctors themselves, if you read all the guidance, it's asking them to reduce the number of type of procedures that would create aerosols. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a dental office, for goodness sakes. They're going to be produced. And so, yeah, it's going to happen. And right now they're saying you got to use an HVE, high volume extractor to, if you will, vacuum the aerosols. But then that requires now another person, a staff member, to stand there and hold it. I think about when you and I get to go back and see our hygienist. My hygienist, Sandy typically just wears a mask and she goes to town with the ultrasonic and such. I only imagine when I see her next, she'll have a face shield on and maybe holding an HVE while she's sitting there trying to do some of the cleaning. So
there's been a lot of conversation from the hygienists in the market that aren't prepared to go back to work. So, what do you have an opinion on that? That they're afraid, or how that's going to look for them? Or I've been on all the chat rooms and all the blogs and all that, and hygienists are saying, they want to stay home a little longer. What do you say to that?
Well, listen, that's their prerogative. Again, when Boyd, when we faced a shutdown, I spoke with our workforce. Literally, I gave every member of our team a letter. I went out and met with everybody and said, we're going to remain open. We have a backlog. We have customers to take care of. And I gave each and every one of them a letter, stating our position. The interesting, and I'll just speak to Boyd on this one, but what's interesting is our absenteeism has dropped to virtually zero during this. We've had people, thank me that they have a place to come back to work to, rather than sitting at home. I have a son that lives in Chicago. I have a daughter that's here in Florida who have primarily been sheltering in place, although their jobs have allowed them to get out some. Those who've suffered through this, it's a little lonely. But if somebody doesn't believe their workplace is safe, it's their prerogative. Now, legally, I don't know where that stands. I'm not an attorney, but I don't believe it would be the proper thing to try to force your employees to come back to work. Your basic question, though, I think it's the prerogative of the person to feel safe. I think it's the responsibility of the employer, or in this case, a dental practice, that they make sure they clearly communicate to their staff members that what they're doing and how they're going to protect them. I know PPP is a big discussion point right now, or the lack thereof, and they're trying to, all that got diverted to the medical industry. We need to get some of that back to the dental industry now, we can take care of our staff members. But I don't think it's the right thing that if somebody doesn't feel that their workplace isn't safe, that you're going to make them come back to work. So,
well, at the end of the day, they're running a business, just like we are, and how they handle their staff and how they communicate to their staff. Obviously, going back to that is very, very important, right? Through all of this. So, but you just see. I had seen that it was like the Hygienists Association. I've just been reading up on everything and just found it very interesting. The doctors are very, very anxious to get back to work. Obviously, it's their business. And it is their prerogative, right? But I see it different. I do see the hygienists just totally, they're going to be geared up. They're going to be all in the protective gear for sure.
Well, God bless them. It's no different in the airline industry. If you saw where the flight attendants are the ones that force a lot of changes in the way that airlines are going to treat passengers.
Well, they should. The felt that was on those airplanes before this, my goodness, I was already paranoid and wiping everything down with my Clorox wipes when I got on the plane. Now I think they should give out. I think that instead of peanuts, they should be giving out the wipes to make the travelers feel a little bit better.
I wouldn't put it past it, Lisa. I'm sure that's going to be the next thing they're going to be handing out.
Slap a logo on some clean wipes, and I think they're good to go. I'm sure I can see that happening. So anyway.
But, I've advised my sales force to do the same thing, I want them to be safe, and I want them to feel safe when they're out making sales calls. And just had to, I have a call with both of my regional sales managers this evening. And one of the things we've talked about is for them to abide by protocols within the offices that they visit. We see that, the world of cold calling, where you go and have a route and you drop in to see a doctor's office, those days may be behind us for a while, because, you can't come in just unannounced. And so, I've advised them that, let's make sure we're respectful. We know that the doctors are going to be busy for a while. You're right. Staff is still trying to figure out how things are going to be done. But when you are invited to go in and make a call or check in with a customer, one, make sure that you're abiding by the protocols and how the office wants you to work. And, so they're going to be masked up. They're going to, keep gloves. They're going to, again, exercise a level of caution, make sure that they're safe, as well as protecting the offices that they're calling upon.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's a really, really good point. Cold calling is going to be kind of a thing of the past, I think. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But that's good. I mean, they have to adapt and adhere to the office, what the office wants when they're going in there, right? And for the patients as well. So, let's get back to the business aspect. What are your observations, or what would be your biggest lesson, I guess, through this whole crisis?
Wow. I think probably as I think about that, is probably the resiliency of our country. It's hard to believe this really has only been a little over 2 months ago that this has started.
Doesn't it feel like years?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's things more industry related, but I mean, I have to say I'm really pleased that generally speaking, the population abided by what was required of them. Let's face it. It was started as 15 days. What was this, shelter in place for 15 days, and it later became 45 days. People have been cooped up for a while. We are seeing signs of civil disobedience at different places in the country. I mean, who can fault people that want to go to the beach in California on a beautiful day in the middle of a heat wave? I know it causes the local municipal leaders a little bit of panic, but I'm not so sure if that was really all that bad for people to get out and do that. But for the most part, I see the recovery economically. We see things the needles starting to point back in the right direction. When we look at this from an unemployment standpoint, unemployment numbers are going to be announced this Friday. Likely to be 20.2 million people unemployed in this country. We've had a workforce participation rate that's been in the low 60s, which is actually lower than it were during the Great Recession back in 2009, which really said that in a period of time, when we look at February, our unemployment rate in this country was 3.5%. Last month it was up to 4.5%. We're likely to see unemployment hit around, at least the smart ones are saying around the 16% level. Now think about that for a second. During the height of the recession in 2009, I don't think unemployment ever got north of 10%. So
that's staggering.
It is staggering. It is absolutely staggering. The observation is let's see how fast this is going to get restarted. This is why I'm in full support of the doctors doing what they're doing to try to get things back going again. We'll see how many of the 20.2 million are coming back to work. Many won't. You see layoffs in the news. I will say that as a business leader, these kind of things also present opportunities. In the course of the last couple of weeks, I've hired 2 new people that were victims of a layoff in other companies that are great additions to our team. Lauren, who's on the call with us, one of those. I do believe that in quite all the maelstrom and calamity that's occurred over the last couple of months, there are some opportunities, and I think the more savvy business people are looking at those potential opportunities.
Absolutely. How many employees do you have at Boyd?
Right now we have 77. We're still a humble small business. Most of those employees are here at the Clearwater facility, but we do have sales teams members that are across the country, Washington, California, all the way up to New Hampshire and parts all in between the country. So, certainly we look at selective hiring. In fact, our salesperson that's up in the Washington state, we hired right when this thing was first beginning. He joined our team. So I had one of those too. Yeah. I think we have to be mindful of that. Whether you're running a dental practice or you're running a business, that in these sort of situations with this many folks, there's good people that, not because of their performance or anything, that found themselves without a job. And I think, we as business people, need to take a look at that and assess that and say, are those people going to be a good fit in our company and help make us stronger in the future?
Right. It just breaks my heart how many people have lost their jobs, how many really good people have lost their jobs. I'm proud and happy to say that I didn't let anyone go during all of this. My staff is intact. My team has been with me, a long time, 15 years, 10 years, 5 years. The newest member is like 2 years. So I went to them and just said, we can each take, including myself, each take a small cut in lieu of letting, 2 or 3 of us go. Or, just kind of take a little bit across the board for each of us so that we can spare, 2 or 3. And everyone was like, yes, we agree with that. So that's what we did. And we didn't have to let anybody go, and I didn't have to, furlough anyone so it's just been, thank God thank God that we just keep going, right? I mean, we just keep going. And I don't want to use the word pivot. I'm not going to use that. But in 15 years, I've reinvented myself so many times in my business. And 6 years ago or so, I started stocking a lot of money into digital media, and we built up that part of our business pretty big time. And and then here comes the time where we need it most, and the doctors are home, and we need to spread education and information. So, everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Again, you should be proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we didn't do a layoff or furloughs as we went through this. It also speaks about preparation. How do you prepare for the unexpected? I think you always have to run lean. Let's just be honest about it.
Yep.
We didn't, as a company, we run at a fairly lean, overhead and production operation. And so, we were blessed that we had a great backlog. We have great customers that believe in us and have stuck with us. We have been able to avoid the layoffs or furloughs. And I think the other aspect of this, and a lot of times when I go to trade shows, Lisa, I talk to doctors and I get a lot of great ideas.
What are trade shows? What are trade shows now?
Oh, trade shows.
Can't you wait to get back to those? I would complain about trade shows all the time. Like, I got to go to another trade show. Now I'm like, I can't wait. Anyways,
I use them as an opportunity for myself to get out and yes. I call it log FaceTime with my customers, right? Doctors are full of great ideas. I get unfiltered feedback, whether we're doing well or we're not doing so well. I do enjoy it. And so, I agree. I do miss the trade shows, but oftentimes my conversations with doctors is not about cleaning teeth or, bands or wires and brackets. That's their job. But what we do talk about is, human resource. How do you train staff? How do you hire good staff members? How do you handle finances? How do you, what's the right leverage should I have on, in my business? And, I think, to survive these kind of periods and again, to expect the unexpected, you got to have a good balance sheet. You can't get, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth for a second. Interest rates are the lowest they've been in my lifetime. Still, when I acquired Boyd in 2012, at that time, the interest rates were around 2%, a little north of 2%. Well, the 10-year note, which is a lot of interest rates are pegged to, was around 2%. Today it's 0.6%. It's like free money, and it's been that way. And so I believe with proper use of leverage, you can do good things. Go out and borrow some money, invest in your practice, go build a satellite, go do things that's going to create a nice, a profit center for you or a wealth creation opportunity. But at the same time, don't get over leveraged, and again, that's why I said, speaking out of both sides of my mouth, make sure you keep, that bit of capital around. I know it's hard for newer doctors that may have a lot of student loan debt, as in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. to try to create, some reserve cash or something to weather through these periods. But regardless of your business, that's kind of what you got to do. You got to keep it lean. You got to make sure your balance sheet's in good order. Leadership. We talk about leadership. I got a great team. Without them, managing through this would have been difficult, or it, is difficult. But they're here and they're doing a good job. And so, you're continuing to assess that kind of thing. And I believe if you keep your business in order, when these things occur, you'll weather it better. And unfortunately, I hear daily about other businesses in the country that are in our product category that may not survive this. And
and the doctor's offices as well. I mean, I've talked to so many doctors that, one in particular, and he said to me, Lisa, I said, what do you mean the doctors, these doctors don't have 45 days to 90 days of cash, or 60, even 60 days? And he's like, Lisa, most dentists run, paycheck to paycheck and month to month, and they just don't. And because the amount of closures that they're anticipating because of this is drastic. So, and for myself, I mean, I guess that just goes back to, again, like you said, being a good, diligent business person and having your reserves. And, thank God, it's like, I'm always nervous if I don't have 3 months, like, put away, to pay all the bills. I get nervous. And so I'm really glad that I'm like that, and that it has, because we've gotten through this, thank God. And we're looking towards the future. But I was just, and I know this, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on a dentist at all. It's just, we know that some of them are great businessmen, some of them not so much. And so I think it's business. It's basic business 101. And if there were reserves there, they're going to make it, like you said. If not, they're not. So unfortunately, but yeah, it's
well,
I think that's one of the main lessons I've learned out of this whole deal.
Yeah,
I think to stay lean and mean and diligent with the money.
Yeah, I think as we fast forward through this, though, obviously I'm a business person. I've been affiliated. I understand the capital markets and such. I think this is going to create an opportunity for the DSOs, because you're going to have doctors that are just shell-shocked by this. Do they really want to have to put up with this and managing a practice? And I think on the flip side, the DSOs see this as a buying opportunity, that valuations, which were getting crazy for dental offices in terms of multiples, are going to come back down. I mean, let's face it, you value something based off of its cash flows, and frankly, dental offices have been closed for a couple of months. The cash flows are going to get dinged, and it's going to bring valuations down. So, yeah, I don't know this for a fact, but just an observation of the marketplace, I do believe that we're going to see, some offices. I think the DSOs are going to start accumulating and adding to their portfolios. And I don't think it's a generational thing. I think it's going to be doctors of all generations that will assess this time and say, gosh, I don't know if I have the fortitude to have to deal with these and deal, with the changes that may be ahead of us. And let's let somebody else do that for me, and I'll just, come in and do my job that I've been trained to do. So we'll see. I mean, this may be one of the outcomes of this, as well.
Yeah. Well, I just, I think we're all ready to get back to work. We're all ready to get back to work, the way that it used to be. And that's kind of a pipe dream. I think it's going to be, like you say, the new normal, whatever that new normal is. But the strong businesses that were strong before this will survive, as well as the doctor's offices. Do you have anything else to add, Adrian, in closing? I mean, I respect your business so much, and you're such a leader in our industry. And I see you guys at all the shows and the specialty shows. And I love that you guys are there, because not everybody who does what you do they're present at the specialty shows, at all the specialty shows. Is there one, so coming out of this COVID situation, is there one specialty over another that Boyd will concentrate on with this? Or, I mean, I know infection control, obviously, right?
Yeah, great question. So we cover 4 specialties. That's what Boyd is. We don't really pursue the general dentistry market. I mean, the likes of ADEC and others that are out there. Yeah. And so, I've often been asked, why don't you do it? And I'd rather be good at, what we do, and that's deal with specialists. Each of those specialists practice their differently, and therefore the equipment around them is different. And like, for example, last year we introduced an endodontic chair. It's the first time anybody's really designed a chair specifically for endodontists. We collaborated with one of the
That is brilliant. That is brilliant, because they do operate in a different fashion. That is just absolutely brilliant thing to do. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. So, obviously orthodontics is our biggest market. We always focus on that. We've got a long history in that. I think oral surgery and implant surgery is a growing market. Especially as we've seen baby boomers and others, caring about aesthetics and things that implant surgeons can help with. Pediatric dentists, I love pediatric dentists. They're one of our markets. Dealing with children, we have doctors that are dealing with children as young as 18 months. Really, to teach good industrial oral hygiene and educate parents and making sure things are going well with them. And then endodontics is a new market for us. So, our focus, I try to be equally weighted in that, although orthodontics is an extremely important market to us. But every time I go to a trade show, I find more competitors showing up there. Perhaps, an outcome of this situation, maybe there will be fewer, participants next year when we go to AAO. We'll see. But a great key market for us. We want to continue to develop new products. Innovation is one of our values in the company. And that's the beauty of being a humble small business. We can be nimble and responsive to these kind of things. And we'll continue.
I say that same thing all the time, that we can be nimble and make quick decisions that some of the larger companies can't.
Yeah, well, listen, I was a good corporate soldier. I've sat in a lot of committee meetings and, sit there and debate stuff over and over again. It's nice now where I don't do this stuff unilaterally unless it's one of those kind of a no-brainer decision. But yeah, we don't have a lot of committees, and we can get together and we can make some decisions and move on. So beauty of, and much of the reason why I wanted to invest and be part of a small business like Boyd, or for those reasons. To me, it's a lot of fun. I'm having a blast with this.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought this is really, really insightful for our viewers, and they're going to get a lot out of this, and your business knowledge and your leadership knowledge and how you dealt with your team in this pandemic, in this crisis, and how you dealt with your customers has been amazing. And it's been so nice to chat with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. So that's going to do it for this edition of Doc Talk Dental. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Boyd Industries. You can find Adrian on LinkedIn if you would like to connect with him directly, or for more questions on Boyd Industries, please visit boydindustries.com. As always, you can find out more information about our specialty journals by visiting medmarkmedia.com or finding us on any social media platform. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Take care.